What is up? You were watching the College Lacrosse Weekday recap and weekend preview show. It is week 7. I think this is our 5th or 6th weekday show that we've done on Thursday, that we put out on Thursdays. So we have a ton of good games today. We had 3 games going to overtime. We had Quinnipiac and Hartford went into overtime. Holy Cross and Brown went into 2 overtimes. And Harvard and Boston U went into 3 overtimes. We have a bunch of other games to talk about, including number 11, Notre Dame hitting the road and playing Michigan. So let's not waste any more time. Let's get into it. But first, before I do, you must go to LaxFactor, LaxFactor.com. We have t-shirts, $10 t-shirts, $3 shipping. So $13 all in. You get yourself a LaxFactor t-shirt. Visit our website, www.laxfactor.com, and go buy yourself a t-shirt. There's a bunch of other t-shirts there, but we have specifically the cheap LaxFactor t-shirts. So there's that. But let's not waste any more time for real now, and let's get into this. The first game I want to talk about today, number 11 Notre Dame went on the road to play Michigan. Michigan was sitting at 3-3 at the time, Notre Dame at 3-2. Notre Dame pulls out a 12-9 win. They were up 12-8 late, and Michigan got a late goal. It was close throughout most of the first half. Notre Dame would get up by a goal or two. Michigan would answer back and get back to within a goal. A goal with 32 seconds gave Notre Dame a 7-4 lead. It was scored by Hallenbeck from Gleason. Notre Dame held an 8-6 lead after Costabile scored with 4:41 remaining in the third. Michigan scored 2 goals over 59 seconds towards the end of the third to tie the game at 8s. And at this point, it's just like, okay, this is Notre Dame. You wouldn't expect anything less from them to play another, barn-burning game. Notre Dame scored with 1 second left in the third to take the lead back. Notre Dame went on to score the first 3 goals of the fourth and ended up with a 12-8 lead late in the fourth. Alex Buckinavage on the game, despite Michigan's loss. Alex Buckinavage was a savage. I see what I did there. I didn't actually intend for that. He had 3 goals, 2 assists on the day. He played incredible all game long. The big thing with him, it's pretty incredible how he's able to get a shot off no matter how excellent a defense is being played on him. His last goal of the game, the one that to make it 12-9, it was perfect defense by the Notre Dame defender. He was, kind of going down the right alley and would try to come back up and ended up shooting off the defender's hip, but still perfectly covered, screened the goalie and everything though. But Buckinavage had an excellent game. Matt Schmidt, Notre Dame's goalie, on paper, he played terrible. It was almost like he tried not to save any shots. In fairness to him, as I watched the game, I didn't notice that he only had 3 saves throughout the whole game. So there's that. But he comes away with just 3 saves on the day, which was pretty terrible. Tommy Height, he looked great for Michigan in net, despite the loss again for Michigan, 13 saves on the day. Notre Dame was led by Brendan Gleason. He goes 2 goals and an assist. Wheaton Jacoby, or Jacobois. I always want to call it Jacoby, but I guess it's Jacobois, or that's at least what the announcers were saying. It looks like it should be a fancy way to spell Jacoby. He goes for 1 goal, 2 assists. Quinn McCann and Connor Morin each go for 2 goals. For Michigan, Buckinavage, as I said, 3 goals, 2 assists, and Bryce Clay, 3 goals. He had a hat trick on the day. So in the end, Michigan, they showed. It's sitting at 3-4 with the schedule they have left. That's not a good place to be with their Big Ten schedule coming up, because the Big Ten schedule is going to be pretty brutal for them. Notre Dame sitting at 4-2 though, heading into their, the bulk of their ACC schedule. They're happy. 4-2 is excellent for Notre Dame right now. They're sitting at number 11. So big win for the Fighting Irish. Gleason had a great game, and holy crap, if you get a chance to see Michigan play, make note. I believe Buckinavage's number was 42. Kid's a hell of a lacrosse player, and he's going to do big things. All right, so we had a bunch of games over the weekend go into overtime. The first one, Quinnipiac beats Hartford 17-16 in overtime. The game winner was scored by James Tomzik for Quinnipiac. Holy Cross beat Brown 11-10 in 2 overtimes. Drew Babiak, who knows how to pronounce that kid's name. He scores a hat trick, his 3rd goal of the game winner in the 2nd overtime, which, great job for Holy Cross to beat Brown. And now Brown, that's a bad loss for them. They win that game. They're kind of sitting pretty. They lose that game. It's not good for them getting into the heart of their Ivy League play, which the Ivy League is fairly brutal here this year. And then we move on to the 3rd overtime game of Tuesday night. Harvard sitting at 3-3 coming into the game. game. Harvard was sitting at 2-4 coming into the game. Boston U was sitting at 6-2. And first half, total back and forth. Edge, Boston U, they're up 5-4 at the half. Boston U scores 4 goals to start the third, taking a 9-4 lead late into the third. Harvard scored the game's next 6 goals from there. They go on a crazy run, score 6 goals, starts with 3:53 left in the clock. They take a 10-9 lead off a Kyle Salvatore man-up goal. Excuse me, I'm not going to cut that out. I'm going to make you listen to that cough. I'm sick, so I'm fighting through this here. Boston U answered right back. They score with 1:30 left to tie it 10-10 on a James Burr goal. And this just goes back and forth here. Harvard scores with 29 damn seconds left in the fourth quarter in the game. They take an 11-10 lead off a Charlie Olmert goal. And then Boston U, it's fitting. Chris Gray scores a freaky dive goal on a crazy dodge. He gets the ball and they blow the whistle just on the outside of the box with 5 seconds left. He goes right to the rack, dives across the crease, scores. Some people think that it should have been called back. Other people, like me, think it was good. I don't think he was in the cone, the bottom of the cone area, or the ice cream part of the cone area that they tell the players to stay out of. He didn't quite make it there in his dive. He doesn't make contact with the goalie, although the goalie fell. But there's a lot of people saying should have been a no goal and a penalty. I'm cool with them giving it to him. I think it was good. Crazy goal, though. The first 2 OT periods, uneventful. Nothing really happened. A bunch of wide shots and things of that sort. Third OT period, Nigel Andrews wins it for Harvard, scoring from the crease. Charlie Olmert assisted. Kyle Mullen, the Harvard goalie, just before that in the third OT period, had a huge save to deny Boston U, and they ended up turning the ball over, and Boston U got it back. But that save, it was a decent 8-yard shot that Boston U had got, and Mullen made the save, and then Harvard gets the ball in the ensuing possession and scores. Nigel Andrews scores the game winner from the crease. So excellent game, crazy exciting. I think that's the second year in a row Harvard has beat Boston U in overtime. And for Harvard, Miles Ham, 3 goals and an assist. Kyle Salvatore and Charlie Olmert go 2 goals and 1 assist. Kyle Mullen in goal, 19 saves for Harvard, 63% save percentage. So Mullen was huge in this victory for Harvard, especially down the stretch. Boston U, Chris Gray, he is the real deal. Ladies and gentlemen, this kid can play ball for reals. 4 goals, 2 assists. He played great throughout the game. James Burr, 2 goals and a helper. And Joe McSorley, 12 saves. He was 50%, so that's solid for a goalkeeper. Insanely exciting game, especially down the stretch with all the goals that were scored inside that last 3.5 minutes or so. But a great win for Harvard, huge win for Harvard nonetheless. Harvard improves to 3-4. Boston U drops to 6-3, but they're still okay. They've got a couple of good wins. They've played a pretty tough schedule. So Boston U at 6-3, Harvard at 3-4. Great game. Trying to keep up with the mid-level teams that are doing well. Hobart, one of them. Hobart sitting at 5-1 coming into their game against Colgate. Colgate was sitting at 3-3. Colgate had a big win over Syracuse, but have played hairy ever since then. But coming into the game at 3-3, they were looking okay, and now they get a chance to try to play Hobart at 5-1 and see if they can't beat their upstate rival, and they couldn't. Turned out, nope, Colgate could not beat Hobart. Hobart beats them 12-6. They kind of put the smack down on them a little bit. Hobart improves to 6-1 on the season, so probably, depending on how they handle their business over the weekend, Hobart could finally end up eking into the top 20. Colgate drops to 3-4, but 12-6 game, it wasn't even as close as 12-6. Colgate, they jump out to an early 2-1 lead, and that was about all they were able to really muster. Hobart scores 6 unanswered goals from there, starting at 5:05 in the first, capped by a Ryan Archer goal with 10:03 left in the third, which gave Hobart a 7-2 lead at that point. Colgate scored with 5:14 left on a Bobby Goggin goal. That's kind of a cool name, Bobby Goggin. I dig that. That got him within 7-3, and then Hobart went off again. They go on a 5-goal run, giving the Statesmen a 12-3 lead with just under 10 minutes in the fourth. That's the ball game. Colgate is able to rail off a couple of goals there towards the end to get within 12-6 and make it semi-respectable, but it was over at 12-2. They had them at 12-3, I should say. Hobart, they now hold wins over 4 teams with records above 500. You look at their schedule, and they don't have any big names on there, but they have a lot of mid-level programs that are winning more games than they're losing thus far in the season. And their only loss so far was against Cornell, and they're solid, and that was a close game. Cornell's first game, it was like Hobart's third or fourth, but it was still, I think it was 18-15 or 19-16 or something like that. Hobart, they have 6 players with 18 points or more, and they have 5 players with 20 points or more. I wanted to work in that 6 with 18 or more because I had one that was close to 20. Eric Holden for Hobart, 4 goals on the day. Derek Madonna nets a hat trick for the Statesmen, and Sam Lucchesi, I think it's Lucchesi is how they pronounced it. 11 saves, 64%. So he factored heavily in keeping Colgate out of it and keeping Colgate at bay. Hell of a game for our boy Sam. So Hobart 6-1. So far, they are the real deal, and we'll see over the course of the next few weeks if they can just keep this up. It'll be interesting for them. We have a lot of these teams that are sitting at 6-1, 7-1, 5-1. Georgetown is another one that comes to mind. They haven't really played anybody yet. Ohio State. I think Ohio State's probably the best of these teams like Hobart, Georgetown, and Ohio State, where Ohio State's probably more the real deal than possibly Georgetown and Hobart, but I don't know. I don't want to slam Georgetown for certain because Georgetown does have a couple of legit attackmen, so I digress. Cornell put the beat down on the Bonnies. Cornell improves to 5-2. They're sitting at number 5 right now. They beat St. Bonaventure 18-3. The Bonnies dropped to 0-6. John Piatelli, 4 goals and a helper. Jeff Teat, 4 assists on the day. No goals, though, so he was quiet there. And Clark Peterson, 3 goals and 1 assist on the day. So Cornell, last year, defense was shaky in the beginning of the season. Offense looked okay. By the end of the season, offense looked incredible. Defense was playing really solid team defense, very good help defense. This year, defense looks shaky. Beginning of the year, one might say their defense looks poor at this point at the beginning of the year. Outside of a couple of the tough teams they've played where they've won. Offensively, they're looking decent, but I want to see Connor Fletcher and a couple other guys start stepping up. Connor Fletcher's the big one. He's been quiet the last couple of weeks. He scored a couple of big goals, but I want to see him put up a few more points. It might just not be needed with how their team's built, though. But Fletcher, he's my big cat. He's my third favorite midi this year in Division I. My first favorite midi, Brian Costabile. My second favorite midi, Dox Aitken. And my third favorite midi, Connor Fletcher for Cornell. So either way, Cornell 5-2. They'll be okay here, and they're going to keep rolling. And we'll see how the Bonnies do. I don't think the Bonnies are going to get a win this season. It's not looking good for them. But first-year programs, it's great to have them there, and they're in an excellent spot from a recruiting standpoint where they can hit up Canada pretty easily. They have easy access to Canada, upstate New York. So good luck to the Bonnies, but Cornell. There are a bunch of games at the Division I level worth following. I'm going to get into a few of them, a handful of them, let's say. I'm going to try to cap it at 5, although I'll probably ramble on you here. One of the first ones, as I'm going through the schedule, on Saturday from noon up, is Denver traveling to play Towson noon on Saturday. That's going to be a really big game for both teams. Towson needs a win badly. Denver needs a win badly. So both teams desperate at this point. Both teams are solid. Both teams are sitting pretty, but still, this is a huge marquee matchup for both of them. Another big one, I wouldn't call it huge by any means, but it's big in my mind simply because I'm curious to see how this team keeps doing, is Marquette at Georgetown. Georgetown gets to host Marquette. Marquette, not great, not bad. They can beat they can hang with anybody when they need to. Georgetown sitting with just 1 loss right now. Can they continue those winning ways? Can they continue to ride their attack and their balanced scoring output to another victory? Probably. They probably can, and they kind of need to because but their schedule doesn't get too bad. They're going to see a couple of tougher teams here down the stretch, but they have a very favorable schedule, and they could very easily, I think it's be heading to Denver at 9-1. I think I saw someone say they could be heading to Denver with just 1 loss, sitting it with like 9 wins or something to that effect. And I think it was Denver that was mentioned. Another big one this weekend is Yale hitting the road to play Ivy League foe Princeton. Princeton desperate for a win. They lose this game, their season it looks really dismal from there. So Princeton needs a win against a very tough Yale, and it's going to be very difficult to beat Yale. Their defense is starting to click finally. TD Ireland, whatever the hell his name is, because now I've had 3 people tell me 3 different things. Please, somebody that has authority, hit me up on Facebook or Twitter or even in the comments here. Tell me, is it Ireland or is it Erlin? I don't want to sound stupid, and I've heard all sorts of people say it all sorts of different ways. But yeah, Yale's going to be tough. I'd like to see Princeton get a win just because I like to see parity, but Yale is playing really tough lacrosse right now, and Princeton not so much. And Yale's strength being their close defenseman against Princeton's strength being their attackman. Just the matchups just don't look good for Princeton at this point. Another big Ivy League matchup, Penn on the road playing Cornell, and Penn, They lose 3 games early. They start out 0-3. They're only sitting at 3-3 right now. So on paper, you'd be like, hey, 5-2 Cornell ranked as highly as they are, 3-3 Penn. But the reality is Penn goes 0-3 because they played Maryland, Duke, and Penn State their first 3 games. That's their first 3 losses, and they haven't lost again since. So Cornell is going to have all they can handle with Penn. And I mean, if you told me to pick that one, I'm telling you to flip a coin. That's how good I think Penn is, and I'm just not sure Cornell's defense is quite there yet to handle this like they should on paper. So I think that's going to be a hell of a game up in Cornell. Another big one here is Ohio State getting their first real test of the season on the road against Notre Dame at 1:00 on Saturday. Ohio State with just 1 loss thus far, but they haven't really played anybody yet. Notre Dame, they've been battle tested and they're ready to roll. They're coming off a weekday win here Tuesday against Michigan. So Notre Dame gets a chance to beat 2 Big Ten teams here in a single week. That'll be huge for them. And we have North Carolina at Maryland. So that's going to be a big one. ACC versus Big Ten. Maryland, look, they're playing really tough lacrosse right now. Jared Bernhardt has looked unstoppable, and then it's just, pick your poison. Who are you going to try to stop? Bernhardt, Fairman, Wisnauskas. I mean, they're deep offensively, and from a goalkeeping standpoint, they've been getting solid goalkeeping play. Their defense looks strong. That's going to be a really tough out for North Carolina, but Carolina on any given day can beat anyone. So the Tar Heels, this is one of the best early seasons they've had in a while. So Maryland, they're not going to sit there and take North Carolina lightly, but North Carolina is going to have their hands full on the road at Maryland against a Maryland team that's just clicking on all cylinders right now. Don't let their close games fool you. They're just now starting to put teams away and beat them a little bit more convincingly. So Maryland, I think, is primed now for their run to try to get back to Memorial Day weekend. So that's going to be a hell of a game to watch. That is at 4:00, and that's on ESPNU. So be sure to check that one out. And the last one on Saturday that I wanted to talk about, Virginia at Hopkins. Long time, old school rivalry. 2 teams that can just fill it up. Hopkins defensively has not been great this year, but they've shored it up the last couple of weeks. Virginia offensively, they're just freaking incredible, but they're to a degree bipolar. You don't know which team you're going to get out of Virginia. They don't play great defense either, but typically offensively, they're gonna be able to put up some points. So that's going to promise to be a hell of a game, though. Regardless, that is at 6 p.m. and that is going to be on ESPN. So you'll be able to watch that via the Watch ESPN app or on ESPN3 or whatever the hell they call it these days. And then Sunday, big game on Sunday, and it's actually kind of a weird big deal. Duke on the road at Syracuse. They are not playing this game in the Dome. The Dome has girls basketball playoffs going on. So Syracuse is having this game played at CNS High School up in Syracuse. So they'll be playing it outside. This game's also on ESPNU. This one's on at 2 p.m. So I guess it's just before the Maryland and the North Carolina game. But it'll be cool to see Syracuse playing a home game outside of the Dome at a local high school. I believe they seat about 5,000, so it'll be cool because usually at the Dome, they're going to put 2,000 to 5,000 fans in the Dome, and it looks really spread out. The Dome is enormous, and even where there's 5,000 fans, it never looks packed. I suspect at this game, where they're flipping to the stands, it's going to look packed because this is going to be a smaller stadium. This is going to be a lot more familiar to a lot of the mid-level D1 teams in terms of the way this stadium is set up. So very interesting, very cool thing for the Cuse fans. No beer. Everybody's wondering why the Cuse fans are so upset that this game's being held off campus at a high school. It's because you can't have beer and Dome dogs. Beer, most teams don't understand how spoiled you are at the Dome. At the Dome, you don't just get to drink beer. You get to drink micro brews, and I mean, they're not even that expensive, and somewhere between $7 to $10 for a tasty beer, and you get your Dome dogs. So take the beer away from the Syracuse fans in the cold and make them sit in the cold with no beer, and then take away their damn Dome dogs. People are going to be upset. This is just how it works. Huge game, though, so be sure to check it out. As always, be sure to like, I think that's over here, and subscribe. That's going to be way over here in the corner. And hit the notification bell so that you get pinged in your pocket when we put up a new video. And thank you. We're over 4,000 subscribers. I don't know how the hell that happened, but it did. So we have more than 4,000 subscribers. I think we're over like 4,150 at this point. So that is awesome. But if you really want to help us out, you can also go to the website. You can buy t-shirts. We have t-shirts. This t-shirt here, $10. Plus just $3 for shipping. So it's $13 all in. You get yourself a cool cool LaxFactor lacrosse t-shirt, and we have a bunch of other t-shirts up there. But really, we don't even care about that. All we ask you is that you subscribe and like the video, and that's it. Enjoy. Thank you.